Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise, whose captain, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, is about to embark on one. "We're going to take the first step," Picard says, holding out a copy of the Voyager Manual of Rules. For as long as humans can remember, Voyager has set sail. Even if everything goes well, this voyage will be your last. And while our crew will be grateful to you from the sacrifice, they will never repay the faith. Not when that sacrifice may soon lead you out of the cosmos and back here, with only a handful of friends still behind you to help. The last time Picard stepped on Earth was during the final months of World War I, at the end of the 2-month war, when the British-supported Empire of Great Britain, Australia, and New Guinea fell. A crew was taken to London, and after the war, for 6 years they lived in a British guest house called the St. Pancras. They returned to the 24th century with one purpose: to save a world they knew they would never live to see. And there is little evidence of the success. In fact, it is often said that the greatest threat to humanity stems from the collapse of this world's fragile foundations. This is not that story, however. This is the story of Picard, a gun, and a man who is, I am sorry to tell you, a little on the paranoid side. Captain Picard gazed wearily out the window in 10 forward. It had been years since his last encounter with that new technology. The cloaking devices were long since worn out, and only the latest generations of sensor tech could match their visual acuity. The sensors in his own suit were capable of detecting a specific kind of radiation, but he had never used one in combat. "Well, it's looking pretty good for now, though," he smiled, stepping to the side and leaning across the desk. "So do you think it'll hold him?" "Well, the problem is, it's already been built 100,000 times more than what the Enterprise normally uses," said Lieutenant Geordi La Forge. "I'd like to see it take a beating, if only to see what the Klingons up to." "I don't want to see anything." Picard leaned back into his chair. "Just know that I hope you enjoy this little tour of duty together." "No thanks. Now, come on, get your quarters ready. I want to see what you're up to." "Thank you, Captain. It was my pleasure. Now then, I suppose you'd better be ready to start your day." His tone was soft and welcoming. Picard shook his head. "How about we get a coffee, Lieutenant?" Picard leaned back in his chair. "Captain's orders." "I've got a new partner," Lieutenant Geordi replied, patting the young officer on his left arm. "We've been at this for a couple days now. If you feel up for some coffee, Captain." Picard didn't need to wait to hear a response. He nodded and pulled Geordi's rifle from the back of the chair. They made their way to the back of the cantina. The young officer's rifle sat proudly on the coffee table, next to the old coffee spoon. At this point, Picard was more interested in the coffee than his weapon. "You're the best you've got," Riker said as he sat down at the counter. "I told you, Captain," Eva responded sarcastically, staring around at the cantina. "So that's why you came. Good choice." Picard smiled at him and nodded his head. "I've got nothing but compliments for you, Lieutenant. I can't imagine the trouble it'd take to set you up. I'm not going to give up just because of money and my own ego." He turned and walked out the restaurant, Eva trailing behind him, hands off his sword. Picard felt a sudden wave of relief and joy. "It's over." He cried after he realized he'd only survived a few minutes. As long as he had his hand held in the direction the gun pointed, he could push off and free himself as he pleased. "He's not my friend, but it would be quite an honor for him," said Picard again, to no one in particular. "As soon as I get word from Captain Picard, I'll send you into the nearest station, where his crew will let you go," said Kelvin as he stood to leave. "But I want to inform the officers of the crew that I have been assigned to assist in your search for the Klingon captain." "What does that mean?" asked Captain Picard. "I told them that you are Starfleet officer, so I'm entitled to help you out, sir. And I'm sure they know that you mean well. But I'll be glad to help you if you don't mind. But I'm sick of killing Klingons," Kelvin protested. The officer was now talking in Romulan. "We can talk all day, but we should be able to get you to your quarters as soon as I get there." "You want to kill Klingons?" "Absolutely. Then I can leave you two here. No fighting." "Why do you want to make my life difficult?" One of the officers looked at his captain as he walked away, and the other pointed at him. "Who should leave you there?" Captain Picard looked around for the others and got the response. "Don't mind them, I'm just taking them to the Klingon quarters." Thank you, Commander. I'll take care of anything necessary, Captain. I trust this will be all right. It won't be any trouble, it's not a warp driver of any sort or anything." The captain gave a small nod and turned back to the console. The Doctor and Beverly entered the bridge and began checking the warp system. After a short pause, a beam shot out of the planet's atmosphere and appeared at their location in about 20 minutes. They watched as the ship was transferred back into normal atmosphere, then came aboard the Enterprise D, and the Doctor directed the crew toward their shuttle on arrival. Beverly and the others quickly took the places command and began getting ready. Before long they were met on the bridge by Captain Picard and Commander Riker. They were greeted as old friends. The former, an intelligent young officer from Deep Space Nine, had retired, while the latter had been serving for 30 years. The retired officers met quietly and then took on a brief but interesting discussion about the future of Starfleet. It was the middle of the night and yet another starship was now waiting at the next rendezvous point. Picard waited in silence, but the gun was now ready. After a few moments, he gave the order that 2 torpedoes should be fired into the air, followed by the third. "Captain," he finally said, "we cannot afford to shoot someone." But the other officers were silent. They did not know what to say. As always, Picard decided that he was going to tell them what was happening. To them, they had been in a place of extreme uncertainty since Picard had taken command, having believed the Federation's message to have been that everyone would make it and nobody would suffer, and that everything was going to be okay. But no one was saying that Picard had had any sort of explanation for what was happening with everyone except Drive. Crusher. The whole thing was just a waste of time, Picard said. "I'm not worried about the consequences, I'm worried about the person. We're just trying to solve this. I don't see any reason for the Enterprise crew to care," Crusher said. "I'm a Starfleet captain. I've never got a reason to care. It's too late. You can't ask somebody for forgiveness. He's not going to die. Maybe he is, Doctor," Crusher said. "But the time I spent in a hospital wing would have been better spent with my patients. You were one of them. You were a scientist. The better off knowing that the Enterprise crew came and took them apart than to be trapped alone in a hospital wing." "I'm sure they do, Doctor," Crusher agreed. "This is why I'm here. I have my duty. I'm here for a reason. And why did we bring you here, Doctor?" Crusher said nothing, but then looked back to her patient. "I've heard stories about that old doctor who tried desperately to repair the Enterprise. What I have discovered is that he failed." Picard watched as the 3 torpedoes iced over and struck the targets. They were struck by a small piece of iron. "At first I thought it was a bomb or an explosive, but I was very careful not to let my eyes get wet so that I wouldn't see the metal," he said. "I knew that whatever it was had to be very explosive." Then the torpedoes struck, creating a large cloud of smoke and debris which exploded, showering debris into the water around the target, and causing them to sink to the bottom of the bay. The torpedo had reached the deck where the crew were sitting, and the debris they had caused had now become a hazard for them, with several crew members dead and others injured after becoming entangled or getting entangled in broken glass, a large metal ballast container, a small metal pipe, and a piece of glass, all of which had not been secured before they sank. On the radio, Mr. Bryce told the captain that the torpedoes had hit and had struck first, killing the captain. At first the captain said that he didn't know what he had done wrong, but later recalled there was only a bit of wreckage and 1 or 2 wounded crewmen. The explosion of the torpedo is about 10,000 pounds, and the fire and smoke was over 200,000 feet. A crewman, though, are not so easily amused. "I'm going to do something with my head," one says in exasperation as crew members move in and out of the station. "You should be ashamed of yourself," comes the snorted reply. The ship is in rough shape, but the team was able to complete their mission and reach the destination safely. "They were doing such a good job that we really deserved it. They were doing well. In a way, we were all pretty fortunate that they were flying us to our destination safely. But again, it was our fault," Picard tells the crew.